the man who never appeared in photos.
I've been a photographer for 7 years. I've captured sunsets, strangers, storms, and smiles. But I've never captured him. It started quietly. At first, I thought it was a coincidence, a trick of the light, a figment of my peripheral vision. But it kept happening. Wherever I went, whoever I photographed, he was there, standing beside me on a street corner as I waited for the light to change. Sitting a few tables away at the cafe where I edited my shots, watching the same sunset on the same rooftop, his silhouette a quiet echo of my own. He never interfered. He never spoke. He was just present, like a shadow that learned how to breathe. I should have been scared, right? A strange man, always nearby. But I wasn't. Strangely, I felt familiar with him, as if I'd known him my whole life, even though we'd never exchanged a single word. His presence was a constant, a quiet hum in the background of my days. One rainy afternoon, the city was a blur of glistening asphalt and hurried umbrellas. I lifted my camera to take a picture of the crosswalk, the headlights smearing into long trails of color. And there he was. He stood right in front of me, under the glow of a street lamp so close I could see the rain sliding down his jaw, the faint, almost imperceptible sadness in his eyes. For a split second, the world fell silent. It was just me, him, and the sound of the rain. Click. The shutter sound was sharp, definitive. I lowered the camera, my heart beating a little faster. Finally, I had him. But when I checked the screen, he wasn't there. There was only the empty crosswalk, the rain peppering the pavement, the vibrant streaks of traffic lights. I frowned, my brow furrowing in confusion. I wiped the lens with the sleeve of my jacket, thinking maybe a raindrop had blurred the image. I looked up. He was still there, watching me. I raised the camera again, focused carefully, and pressed the button. Click. Nothing. Just an empty street. He looked at me, not startled, not confused, but almost apologetic. As if he already knew this would happen. As if he'd lived through this exact moment many, many times before. A soft, resigned sadness washed over his face before he turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Later that night, I couldn't shake the feeling. I sat on my floor, surrounded by hard drives and memory cards. I went through all my old photos, every event, every street, every landscape from the past few years. Hundreds, maybe thousands of pictures where I remembered with absolute certainty seeing him somewhere nearby, in the corner of a crowded market, leaning against a wall during a street performance, walking along the beach just beyond my subject. But in every single frame, he was missing. The space he occupied in my memory was simply empty. An empty chair at a cafe, an empty spot on a park bench, a void in the crowd. It was like erasing a ghost from a photograph, except the ghost was real, and the photograph was lying. I felt a chill I couldn't explain. It wasn't the cold of the room. It was a deeper, more unsettling cold that seeped into my bones. How can someone always be beside me, a physical, breathing person, yet never appear in any photograph? It defied logic. It defied everything I knew about my own craft. Still, the next day, he was there. Again, standing quietly at the bus stop as I passed on my way to a shoot. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't frowning. He was just looking at me with that same gentle, heart-wrenching sadness. And, for the first time, I started to wonder, is he following me? Or Am I the one who keeps finding him? A question echoed inside me, bouncing off the walls of my mind. Who is he? Hand? Why does he stay beside me if he leaves no trace behind? Is he a memory, a warning, or something else entirely? I knew then that I couldn't ignore it anymore. I had to find out who this man was, even if my camera refused to see him. My obsession had begun. For 3 weeks, he was a constant, silent presence. He'd appear almost every day, close enough for me to notice, but far enough not to feel intrusive. A shadow in the corner of my eye. A figure at the edge of the crowd. The mystery of it all started to eat at me. I'm a photographer. I notice details. And this detail, this man, was becoming an obsession. One evening, I couldn't take it anymore. The sky was a deep, bruised blue, the kind that signals the end of a long day. The street was quiet, holding its breath. I saw him standing under a flickering street lamp, just as he always was. This time, I didn't hesitate. I walked straight toward him. My heart was a drum against my ribs. He didn't move. He didn't step back or vanish into the shadows like I have expected him to. He just stood there, waiting. When I was only an arm length away, close enough to see the lines around his eyes, I asked, my voice barely a whisper, "Why do you follow me?" He blinked, slowly, like someone carefully choosing their words from a vast, quiet library. His voice, when it came, was soft, deep, and had a strange, distant quality, as if it were traveling across a great expanse to reach me. "I don't follow you," he said. "I return to you." Return to me? The phrase sent a shiver down my spine. It was unsettling, illogical. "I don't understand," I managed to say. He offered a sad smile, the kind people give when they want to apologize but can't find the words. It was a smile full of unspoken history, of a story I didn't know I was a part of. That night, something shifted. I went out into the city to shoot, my camera in hand. He was with me, walking beside me the entire time. He was a gentle, silent, constant presence. He watched as I framed my shots, as I captured the neon glow of the city, the lonely figures on late-night trains, the rain-slicked streets. He was there, right beside me. But when I got back to my studio and loaded the photos onto my computer, my blood ran cold. In every single picture, he was gone. The world I had captured was there in perfect detail. The places, the colors, the other people in the background, but not him. Never him. It was as if the camera, my trusted eye, couldn't see what I saw. He was a ghost to the lens. This impossibility sparked a fire in me. I had to know more. I had to understand. A feeling tugged at the edge of my memory, a faint, half-forgotten echo. Something about him felt familiar, but I couldn't grasp it. It was like trying to remember a dream moments after waking up. So, I started digging. I became a detective in my own life. I scoured old photo archives, sifted through newspaper clippings, and even made calls to hospital records departments, searching for anything, any clue, any fragment of a story that could explain why this man could exist in my world but not in my photographs. Days turned into sleepless nights. My studio became a chaotic landscape of paper and unanswered questions. And then I found it. Not in a public archive, but in a dusty box tucked away in the back of my own studio. A box I hadn't opened in years. Inside was an old photograph from early in my career. It was a chaotic scene, a car accident. Blood stained the pavement, and shattered glass glittered like broken stars under the harsh glare of emergency lights. And there, I was a younger, terrified version of myself, kneeling on the ground beside a man. His face was blurred, either by the frantic motion of the moment or by some cruel twist of fate. But his silhouette, his posture, the very essence of his presence, it was him. It was the man who stood beside me in silence. The man who never appeared in my photos. The caption I had written on the back of the print, in my own hurried scrawl, came rushing back to me, hitting me with the force of a physical blow. The stranger I saved, but lost. My heart seized in my chest. A memory locked away for years burst open. A rainy night. The deafening screech of tires on wet asphalt. A body thrown violently to the ground. I remembered my hands, trembling uncontrollably as I dialed for help, my voice cracking as I pleaded with the operator. I saved him. I had always held on to that. I pulled him from the wreckage. I stayed with him until the paramedics arrived. But did he survive? The question hung in the air, heavy and cold. I had never followed up. In the chaos and trauma of it all, I had let the story end there. My breath faltered. The room suddenly felt colder. The lights seemed to dim, and the shadows in the corners grew longer, stretching out like grasping fingers. What if he didn't make it? What if my efforts were too late? What if the man who had been returning to me all this time was a soul that never fully crossed over? A spirit tethered to the person who tried to save him, silently watching over me, present in my life, but unable to be captured by it, a permanent resident of the space between memory and reality. I looked at the empty space beside me, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid. I was just sad. Thanks for watching. The next day, I went back to the crosswalk, the place where it all happened, and he was there, standing at the edge of the curb, just like the day before. It felt like he was waiting for me. I walked over and stood beside him, and the world just soft. The roaring traffic became a gentle hum. The people rushing by turned into soft blurs of color. Even the wind seemed to whisper secrets as it passed between us. He didn't turn to look at me, but his voice was soft, almost carried on that same wind. You remember now. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. My own voice shook when I answered, the words catching in my throat. You died that night, didn't you? He closed his eyes, and as if on cue, a light rain began to fall, each drop soft and cold against my skin. I didn't remember at first, he said, his gaze fixed on the endless stream of cars. Not until I saw you again. Even then, it was always fleeting. I could never stay long, never show up in your photos. It's as if the world no longer knew how to see me. Tears started to well up, hot and stinging. Then, why? I choked out. Why did you stay beside me all this time? He finally turned his head, and his eyes met mine. And for the first time, in all the weeks I'd seen him, I saw past the sadness. I saw a warmth, a flicker of something ancient and deep. Because my last memory, he said, his voice barely a whisper, was your hands holding mine. The rain grew heavier, drumming a steady rhythm on the pavement, but his form, it was becoming lighter, more transparent. It was like the storm itself was pulling him away, unraveling him thread by thread. I wasn't following you, he whispered, his voice fading with the growing distance between our worlds. I was trying to thank you for not letting me die alone. A desperate plea escaped my lips. Don't go. Please. I just found you again. He offered a smile A soft, aching smile that held years of unspoken loneliness. "You didn't find me again," he corrected gently. "You finally remembered me." A sudden flash of lightning illuminated the darkening street. He took a step closer, raising a hand as if to brush a tear from my cheek. But I felt nothing but the cold, rain-filled air where his touch should have been. His voice cracked, echoing as it faded into the storm. "I can leave now. You set me free the first time, and now, by remembering, you've set me free again." His outline dissolved, shimmering like heat haze, before bursting into a soft, gentle light that mingled with the raindrops. And then he was gone. Truly, finally, gone. But standing there, soaked in the downpour, the street didn't feel empty anymore. The air didn't feel hollow. For the first time in weeks, I lifted my camera. I pointed it at the crosswalk, at the wet asphalt reflecting the city lights. Click. The shutter sounded loud in the quiet aftermath. I looked at the picture on the small screen. It showed nothing out of the ordinary, just rain, streaking lights, cars passing by, life moving on. But I smiled, because I knew, even if the world's lenses could never capture him, my heart always would. Some people never appear in our photos, not because they were never there, but because they were never meant to stay in this world. But their memory, their kindness, their love, that stays beside us, a quiet comfort, long after they're gone. Thank you for watching this story. Please give me a like and subscribe to support me, and so you won't miss the next stories.